Sup, bitch? Creeper, aka the Killjoy Scrub, bringing you today's edition of Juggalo shit. So before I get into the meat of the video, I wanted to discuss a project that I did with Duchess Dark over at HorrorTube. That's the YouTube content creation collective centered around horror-themed subjects. She herself's a voice actress and narrator of spooky tales. She also does something called Serial Killer Saturdays, so I recommend you guys check that out. Well, I reached out to her to see if she'd be willing to do a narration for a short story that I wrote called A Rapture in Reverse. And let me tell you something, guys, she fucking schooled it. So if you wanted to test my chops as an actual horror writer instead of a, fucking dickhead in a car and a mask, I would go check that shit out because it's probably some of the spookiest shit I ever written. Moving right along. Now, I know I talk a lot of shit about being a so-called horrorcore lifestyle guru. Well, fuck that shit right now. I'm going to take it back to real horrorcore music. Now, if you're a Juggalo, obviously you're familiar with the 6 Jokers cards, the series of horror rap concept albums that's one of the pillars that built the Juggalo community. Well, as time went on, it's no longer the only series of horror rap concept albums out there in the underground. So today, I'm going to take an exploration of some of these lesser-known horror rap series. Disclaimer before we start, though. Ordinarily, in the comments, I try to hook you up with as much free shit as possible, and I'm still going to do that, like maybe a song or two or some shit. But I have to say, since I'm exploring rappers and shit, I encourage y'all to fucking go out there and buy the motherfucking albums, alright? At this point in the game, a digital album costs less than a bag of weed, so your faded ass really has no excuse not to go out and support this shit, because that's what actually keeps the underground alive, alright? I'm going to kick this off with an honorable mention. It's not a series, but it is a concept. I'm talking about Grewsum's The Inner Sanctum EP, specifically the old-time radio intro. Now, this EP clocks in at just under 17 minutes and is meant to mimic the presentation of the old-time radio broadcasts, kind of similar to what I explored in my audio horror video. Now, so obviously y'all know the kind of love that I got for that shit. Even the name, The Inner Sanctum, sounds like it could be an old-time radio show, right? Well, I'm just fucking jocking this real hard. He comes out as like the Crypt Keeper style narrator before the raps drop, and those are the horror stories that's presented. So I'm absolutely fucking in love with this thing. If this EP was a chick, I'd fuck her. If this EP was a dude, I might play with his hair if we were on good Molly. Next up, we have the series of mixtapes that is, to this day, a certified underground classic. I'm talking about King Gordy's The King of Horrorcore, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Gordy kicked down the door to our scene by flexing his ability as a lyricist, freestyle rapper, and soulful savant of wicked subjects. To this day, the song Juggalette remains the guilty pleasure panty dropper for many chubby, face-painted lady. In Volume 2, he comes out like a fucking methed out biker swinging a chain, riding in on the breakdown of Alice Cooper, before shredding into raw lyrical subjects, which is more the focus of that album over narrative style, with the exception being an ode to the Jigsaw Killer. The song King, for all its pomp, is probably the greatest ode to the horrorcore genre ever put on a song, so y'all need to check that shit out. But Gordy is not the only person to claim King of Horrorcore. As a matter of fact, his rivalry with Mission Infect General Low-Key over the title led to one of the most infamous internet tickle fights in all of underground history. And while we're on the subject of Low-Key, let's talk about his concept series, The House 1 and 2. Now, I play these albums in October, where I have a ritual list of certain Halloween-y albums that I play leading up to the season of the motherfucking witch. And The House, followed by The House 2, gets put on that rotation, you feel me? The House 1 is a concept series that takes you through a Texas Chainsaw-esque slaughterhouse, with each room of the house being represented by a different song on the album. The House 2 is a little bit looser in concept, but you begin to see shades of the innovative way that he would approach music in his follow-up series, the Shadowland series, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but I will be exploring at a later date. Almost forgot to mention, the motherfucker did an HD remaster of these. So they're actually out now. He did it just this year. He basically remixed the whole motherfucker so that it's got crystal fucking clear sounds of HD murder in your ears to get all the freshness and clarity of the screaming victims. So yeah, go cop that. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Lights. Yeah, yeah. Turn out all the lights. 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 When them cops ride by, turn out all the lights. Show they acting shy, okay, I turn out all the lights. It's like the perfect night to die, I turn out all the lights.
Alright, my bad, let me stop. Fucking, it's dark out, obviously. What can I say, I'm a busy motherfucker. Anyway, getting back on topic here. So when I was a fresh-faced Juggalo, I was initially only aware of two other underground acts that weren't psychopathic associated artists such as the ROC and Nodus. One of them was Medulla. The other one was Q Strange. In 2003, Q Strange released Strangeland, which a lot of fans thought was the rapper coming into his element. You had songs like Ghetto Gothic, which was an early example of a rider track, you know, with 20 motherfuckers on the fucking song. Before the underground was saturated with him. This was one of the first ones that did that. And his song Nothing actually still holds up really well today. It's even more poignant, as a matter of fact, and relevant too. In 2011, Tech-9 released a collaboration album called Welcome to Strangeland. Q responded to this with the surprise release of his follow-up, Return to Strangeland, with the titular track being a direct diss to Tech-9. This was the first time that anybody in the underground, or at least anybody of note, had challenged the Metal Giant on a track, and it was a sharp, biting criticism that reflected the attitudes of a lot of underground MCs at that time. It also features songs like Return of the Drifter, which was a callback to his sophomore album, Creation to Execution, which was an OG underground cult classic. But see, Q's diss to Tech came during an era where the Kansas City rappers label, Strange Music, had officially thrown its hat into the horrorcore arena by signing the West Coast rip gut legend Brotha Lynch Hung. Fans were excited enough to hear about the release of Dinner in a Movie. I personally was geeked to learn that this would be the Kickstarter to a trilogy of concept albums called the Mannibalector Trilogy, with Dinner being followed by the Coathanger Strangler and capping off with Mannibalector. It features slick production by Michael Seven Summers and features by the likes of the Dog Pound and Irv the Phenom, as well as a who's who from the Made Sick and Strange Music rosters. So this really made it a quality, polished album. I will say that the ending feels a little bit lopsided, due in large part to the absence of First Degree the DE, who lends his distinct voice to the character of a corrupt homicide investigator who's been aiding the Coathanger Strangler, who's a rapper turned serial killer who will strangle you with a motherfucking wire hanger and then eat you. Anyway, fucking DE was the cop that was helping him out all along, and he's absent from the third album. So it feels like that's a pretty big plot hole there in that thing. And this is articulated by skits that wrap around the album. But the quality of the production, plus the skits, plus all the banging features, the bomb-ass production, great concept. In my opinion, I think that it's the best series of concept albums since the original 6 Joker's cards. Do y'all think I'm wrong? What's your fucking opinion on it then, dickhead? Why don't you tell me down in the comments? Fucking my name is Creeper, alright? Be sure that you check out a Rapture in Reverse, Chapter 1, presented by Duchess Dark. Links are for everything. All the shit is going to be available in the comments. Music videos, songs, fucking my shit. Check it out. Oh, and also, Whoops, the Juggalo webcomic. I talk about it all the time. You can go fucking do that. Come on. Laugh with me. Laugh with me or cry with me. It's your decision, bitch.